My goodness. Hello, hello. Happy month end. Can you believe? No, not month end. It's month beginning. Wow. July 2nd. This is our last call of the month, just because the end of June and the beginning of July happened together. So that's why I just said end of month. But anyway, July 2nd. Happy July. Today is our monthly Biz live Zoom call where we get to take your questions that you've asked in the group. And then if anyone's on live and has questions, we can answer them together, which is incredibly exciting. All right, let me make sure that we are recording. I want to make sure my view is good so that when we have our, here we go. Nope, that's not what I want. How do I pin myself? There we go. Okay, cool. Let's do this. So let me bring up your questions. Also, if you guys are here, welcome. If you have never been on a live call with me before, this is your first time inside the group or first time on a live call, I'm Gwen. Nice to meet you. I'm just your regular everyday mom who, if you guys know my story, just got tired of, well, I had a realization that I wasn't in charge of my time and I wasn't in charge of my money. And I said, life is short. F this. I'm going to go create my own income. And it took me 8 years of figuring it out. But my entire mission, the entire reason why I'm here today and I do these things with you is because I want people to skip the mistakes that I made. I know that there are so many of you here who have a lot of impact to make on the world. And what I saw happening in the entrepreneur space was that people they would be in analysis paralysis. They didn't know what idea to run with because they were afraid that if they ran with one and it failed, that it meant that they were a failure and they could never try anything again and that was the end. Or they had an idea, but didn't know how to put it together and then didn't know how to market it. And after it took me 8 years to finally figure out the marketing piece and how to find a profitable idea, I was like, okay, this is my calling. I'm supposed to now turn around, lend a hand, and teach other people how to do this. Because truth be told, it's not that hard. And a lot of it is mindset, which is why we talk a lot about mindset in here. And then there's just certain strategy and structure and systems that we need to follow. There's like a foundational framework so that whatever we build it on concrete, right? So that's the reason why I'm here. Welcome if this is your first call. I'm super excited to do our monthly live. So let me open up my chat. Let me grab the questions from the group and let's just start there. So let me make this a little bit smaller so I can see. And let me open up a new tab. Sorry, this is just me talking to myself per usual. And then let me find my Zoom again. All right. Good morning, Haiti. I see you. She says, I'm on my way to work and I wanted to pop in and say hello. I'm so glad that you're here. Super excited that you're inside the group. Hopefully some of these answers to these questions are helpful to you. And if you have a question, just pop it into the chat. All right, so let's start with 𝗵𝗂𝗀𝗃. She said, so I've produced a workshop, but I don't know where to start to sell it. She said, I've got a website, so I could list it on there. It's 5 days of emails with lessons and actionable points. So I think that's what she's saying. Her workshop is 5 days of emails that takes people through the workshop. Just not sure where to find the mechanics behind automating something like that. I've used MailChimp before, so I get email. So I get email lists and marketing emails, just not sure where to start. Any pointers to creating funnels? Okay, so what I told M was, first of all, this is exactly why I created Pop Lock and Profit, like for this exact reason. So she has something to sell, but she doesn't know how to market it and how to get the sales. And that's part of Pop Lock and Profit's offers, right? So I said, okay, well, make sure you check out Pop Lock and Profit because that's exactly what I teach in there and I teach it step by step. But to kind of give an overview answer to this question in case anyone else has the same question or is curious how to do this. What we want to consider is we want to consider a lot of things in this process. But it kind of all starts with, okay, how are you getting eyeballs on what it is that you have to sell? And if you're brand new, you've never sold anything before, this is your first thing, well, we have to get people interested. in you. We have to get people to know you. We have to create awareness around who you are, what you do, and how you help people. And then we have to start showing people how that process works and how you're an authority to help people through this process. And that all happens in content. So where you list the product for sale doesn't actually matter, right? You could list it on the website. You could have a PayPal link. Like, it doesn't matter where the actual thing is, okay? But your funnel that you're going to create is going to get traffic from your content. And that is probably going to be social media, most likely, because social media is free, right? Anyone can go on there and create social media. And that is an easy way for you to show up and drive traffic to your offer. But like I said, if you're brand new, you can't just start a social media account and show up and be like, hey, I'm an expert in this thing. Come grab this product that I have for sale. No one's going to trust you. Why? Because if you walked into a hotel conference room and there's someone up there on stage and nobody's in the audience seats are empty, are you going to feel like this person has clout? Like, are you going to feel like this person is trustworthy? Probably not. No one's watching this person. No one's listening to what they have to say, right? They're kind of speaking into the void and just hoping somebody shows up. So in the beginning, when we're brand new to promoting ourselves, promoting what we do, promoting our content, we have to create some relatability. Okay, so we've talked a lot about in here lifestyle and relatable content. There are different content strategies and different content types depending on where you are in the process. But if you're brand new and showing up with something to sell, you can't sell it out of the gate. People have got to get to know you. So we create awareness around who you are and what you do, why it's important, why you're excited about it, why you're here, and parts of your journey. Those 5 things would be a part of the content strategy that I would work on right now. I would just start creating content, creating content, creating content. We're not even going to point people in the direction of what you have for sale yet. It is more going to be about growing that community, growing that audience so that, and by audience, I literally mean on your social media. Because if you then, let's say you gain 500 followers, 1,000 followers, you go into a hotel room, conference center, there's somebody standing on stage, there's 500 people in the audience. What are you going to think? Wow, this person probably knows what she's talking about. I'm probably going to stick around. Let me sit down and listen, right? And that's what happens when people come to your social media and they scroll through some of your posts. You're like, who is this person? What is she talking about? Does she know what she's talking about, right? They're forming an opinion on you based on how you're showing up. So the more audience you have, the more clout, the more proof that you have behind you. This is when we start to create some more educational content. You're taking people through a process. Authority content, you're showing people, hey, if you came to me with this problem, this is how I'd help you. Again, you're taking people through the process. Or this was a client of mine, this was a student of mine, this was a customer of mine, she had XYZ problem, she wanted to create this desire, this is how I helped her get there. Right? So you're showing people that you have the process and that you have the authority. So that's where we shift our content strategy just a little bit. Again, where you host the product is not going to matter as long as there's a link to purchase. When we go about creating funnels, okay, so our main source of traffic starts with our content. We're driving traffic to our funnel. A funnel is just a place where people say, yes, I want that thing, and then they're added to a process. Now, most people, and here's what I recommend, especially if you've gone through Pop Lock and Profit, you'll know this, you should have a lead magnet, something for free that people can opt in for and get for free so they can experience you. They're like, who is this chick? How am I going to trust her? Let me get something for free and just see what she's all about. And then that freebie will lead to the paid product. The freebie is going to be something of value that answers what and why. So like, what is this? Why is it so important? And then a little bit of the how-to. It's going to give somebody a quick win so that the next most logical step for them is your paid product. Okay, and if you think about it, if you go out to TonyRobbins.com and you don't know Tony Robbins, you're like, you know what? All these people talk about Tony Robbins. Who the heck is Tony Robbins? And you go out to his website, TonyRobbins.com, and you're like, okay, well, I'm not going to buy a book yet. I don't really know Tony, what he teaches, what he's all about. Oh, but Tony has this free download that helps me. I don't even know. What does Tony help you do? Figure out where you're stuck. in life and what direction to take next. Right? So he's got a free download. Well, I don't know Tony yet. I don't really trust him yet. I want to trust him, so I'm going to get his free download. You download his freebie, you go through the process, you fill it out, you get some really insane value from it. And you're like, wow, that was really great. Tony, like, I feel like I know so much about myself. I know what next step to take. And you said the next most logical step is to buy your book. Cool. I'm sold. Like, I'm going to buy your book. Right? So then you go through that process. And then you read Tony's book and you're like, wow, Tony, that was such a great book. I accomplished this. I realized this. I did this. What else do you have to offer? Let me go to your website. Oh, Tony has a course. Okay. I feel like that's the next most logical step, and it's going to help me do XYZ, which is just a natural progression from the book. So this is what you're creating. Okay. I'm telling you all of this because even the most profitable people in the world go through this same process. This is your trust funnel. So people need to trust you on your social media content first before they actually do anything with you. Then they need to have some content, some value for free before they buy your paid product. Then they need to get that value from that freebie so that the next most logical step is to buy your product. Okay. I walk you through the actual process of creating your funnel, meaning like, what's your opt-in page? What's your hook going to be on the page? What do you need to have on there? How do you connect it to your back end in Pop Lock and Profit? So if that is where you are, that's where I would go. Pop Lock and Profit is how to start and build your profitable online business, and it includes building that funnel. Okay, so that was 𝗵𝗂𝗧𝗘 question. Hopefully that helps. Let me know if you have any questions about that or if anybody else does as you're listening to that answer. George is a newer member inside of our group. Hi, George. Thank you so much for your question. He said, I recently watched December's replay, and this will be my first live. My question might be a little in the early stages of the process, but here it is. He said, how much content, TikToks, Reels, or YouTube Shorts do I have to do before I offer a freebie? This is such a good question. I'm working on an AI bot that will help you create a freebie and will help you create your content strategy based on how many followers you have and where you are in the process. So this is like perfect timing. I was just working on it this morning. So there's really no steadfast, hard and fast rule. Like, oh my gosh, you cannot have a freebie unless you have 500 followers. There's no rule like that. But like I was just answering 𝗵𝗂𝗧𝗘's question, this has to do with how much trust you've created in the space. Do people know who you are? Do they know your story? And trust me, you're going to repeat yourself a lot. It's going to feel like you're a broken record, and you are. Totally okay, because people need to learn who you are and they need to trust you. So I usually tell my students somewhere around 500 to 1,000 followers is where you really start to get that, like, okay, people are starting to learn my story. They're starting to understand me. They're starting to see what I do and maybe how I help people, or really just gathering this community of people. I always tell people in the very beginning, you can start a brand new social media account and start selling out the gate. It will probably be harder for you to get sales because no one knows who you are. They don't know what you do. They don't know what kind of authority you have on the product, right? It's going to be very hard for you to get sales. But if you start showing up and you start taking people on the journey with you, and you start sharing your story, and you start giving little insights, and you start connecting with your ideal avatar, maybe you talk about some of their problems, some of their desires. You relate to them so they can relate to you. That kind of content gets the followers because people will see that content and go, oh my gosh, that's me. And they will either save it, they'll text it to their best friend, they'll want to repost it on their page and be like, it's me, guys, it's me. Like somebody gets me, right? That is lifestyle and relatable content. So what I would do, George, is I would aim for at least 500 followers and just kind of gauge, okay? Again, there's not a blind threshold here at 500 followers, meaning like that's the time. Especially because let me tell you this, when I first started, I didn't know anything about content, how to post, when to ask for a sale. I didn't know any of that. So I, out of the gate, started sharing a freebie that I had. But what actually started to gain me followers and what catapulted my opt-ins and my sales was that I was also taking people on the journey with me. I was like, hey, I'm Gwen. I just had to take my girls out of gymnastics because we couldn't afford to continue to pay for it. It broke my heart. I put my stake in the ground and decided like I am done, quote unquote, struggling in life. And I'm here to make a difference. I'm here to make an impact. I'm here to bring my husband home from working 100 plus hours a week. I'm here to put my kids back in gymnastics. That's my goal. And I'm going to do it online. And so I shared my story over and over. I took people on the journey with me. That is the gold. That's what got me followers and engagement. You can have 500 followers and no engagement. You can have 500 followers and tons of engagement. So just kind of base, how's your followers? How's your engagement? Because you could go viral once and gain 500 followers, but nobody engages on your posts. Not a good quality foundation of followers. You could also go viral, gain 500 followers, and those 500 followers are like watching all your other posts and they're commenting and they're sending you messages and they're connecting with you. That's a great sign that you've got this community starting to build of the people that you know you're going to eventually help with your freebie. And you can start sprinkling in a little bit of educational posts or authority-based posts or before and after like inspirational posts to show people where you were and where you are now. And you don't have to be that far ahead of other people to do this. Hey, the saying is you only need to be 10% ahead to be 100% of service. 10% ahead. Sorry, I'm just making sure that there's no delivery truck coming up my driveway. Okay. Okay, so to answer your question, how much content, TikToks, Reels, YouTube Shorts do I have to do before I offer a freebie? It's not so much about how many posts you do. It's more so about what does your engagement look like? What does your following look like? Again, that hotel room. Are you the sole person up on stage with nobody sitting in the audience? Going to be kind of hard to get somebody to grab a freebie if there's nobody in the audience. Or are you that person up there with 500 people in the audience and they're all like, "Oh, George, pick me, answer my question." Right? Going to be a little bit easier. So it's not about the quantity of your content, but I will say this also. I believe you have to post 100 posts just to even start to figure out, what do you like to post? What kind of content do you like to make? What is your audience starting to like? What is your audience engaging with? Are you getting the right audience from this content, or do you need to pivot? Right? So just get 100 bad posts out of the way. Just create content, try things, lots of different things, right? And just see what works, what doesn't, and what you like. Okay? George's second question was, he says, another question I have is whether I should make faceless videos. So this is there is somebody else who asked about faceless content. DF said, do you necessarily have to show your face to sell content online? Just a curiosity. So I'm going to answer this question with a question. Maybe not with a question. Because here's the thing, when this question comes up, it's one of two reasons. And this is 90% of the time, is that people are afraid to show their face. Why? Why are you afraid to show your face? You're afraid of judgment. You're afraid of people knowing you and finding you and being like, "Oh my God, have you seen what George is doing online?" Right? You're afraid of being judged, or you're afraid of failing and then people judging you because you've failed. That is 90% of the reason why this question comes up. The other 10% is logistically or legally. Maybe you work a job and you'll get fired if somebody finds your content, right? Like that's an extreme and you don't want to get fired. So that is usually the other 10%. So if we look at the reason why 90% of people ask this question, then I say, if you went into a hotel room, conference center, and there was a voice in the room, but like nobody was up on stage, you couldn't see where the voice was coming from. And it seemed like it was like behind a curtain. It was pretty mysterious and they were just talking. Would you be like, I want to stick around for this? Would you be interested enough to sit in a chair and just listen? Right? So like this is the visual that's behind that. The reason why face forward content works so well, the reason why more people show up for this monthly live business call is because it's live and they can see my face and they can be on camera with me versus, other live videos. Like this gets more attention because people feel seen and heard. It's very hard for someone to feel seen and heard when they can't see the person who's talking to them. There's this whole research study on babies. I've talked about it in here, but let's talk about it again. They did this research study on babies, and don't quote me because I'm not quoting it for sure, but the gist of it was oxytocin levels in babies when they could see mouths, when they could see eyes, when they could see facial features, versus when they couldn't, they could just hear the voice. And the oxytocin levels were exorbitant, exacerbated. What's that word? They were really big, much bigger when these babies could see lips and they could see eyes and facial features, right? It is a feeling that people get when we can have a conversation face to face. I'm not saying you can't get that if you can't see, right? Blind people can still have that communication. They can still have that oxytocin flow, even if they can't see the person that's talking to them. But for most people, for a majority of people, the trust building aspect happens when we can see and hear at the same time the person who's talking to us. It just adds this level of relatability for people. Okay. You share emotions on your face. People can see that. People can feel that. It is a very different experience than faceless content. Faceless content took off it really started to be big in 2023, 2024, because what happened was people started to see other people showing up online and being like, oh my gosh, they're really doing it. They're doing amazing things, but they're face forward and I don't want to show my face. So somebody said, I'm going to create a course about how you can do this faceless. And they created a whole course. And then what came from that was like pieces of content with, like free, I don't even know, free resources. You can get videos that show other people, right? Videos that you could download that weren't your own, that you could use in your content that didn't show your face. And this faceless trend, quote unquote, took off. There were a few creators that did very well with it. And I think the reason why they did well was because they were hitting an objection that people had. And so therefore they were gaining a lot of traction. It wasn't that like the thing that they were selling, how to make money online, the course, was doing well. It was just that there were this giant group of people who didn't want to show their face because they were afraid, seeing, oh, there's a faceless option. And that was what made that get popular, not what that person was selling. Okay. So to answer that question, can you do faceless content and be successful? Yes, you can. Yes, you can, but you've got to figure out how to create trust with people. You've got to really tell your story. You have got to connect. Okay, awareness and connection is going to be your biggest thing. I would tell you this, and this is what I tell all my students. If the reason why you want to do faceless content is because you're afraid of what people will say, F it. You have one life. Are you going to regret not going for your goals because you're like, I can't show my face online? Like, what's the worst thing that can happen? Will you die if you show your face in a piece of content and it flops? Nobody sees it. Nope. Will you die if you post a piece of content with your face and someone says something mean about you? No. How much does what other people say, how much is what other people say based on their own hardships, their own things that they're mad about in their life and not on you? Like all of it. Okay. So when someone says something mean to you, they're just projecting something that they feel about themselves. You have become a mirror for them and they don't like that. Okay. So can faceless content work? It can, but I always tell my students, just do it. Because I think what's going to happen is you'll be way more proud of yourself for showing up and facing a fear and realizing that, oh, it's not that bad. Are you going to be good at talking on camera the first time you do a post? No, of course not. Who is? Who is good at walking the very first time they put their feet on the floor? Nobody, right? But how do we get better? Well, we have to practice. And our first content has to be shitty, and we have to be okay with it being shitty. Because on the other side of shitty is tomorrow's better than today. Not as shitty tomorrow as it was today. And then 2 days from now, definitely not as shitty as it was yesterday, and way more less shitty than it was 2 days before, right? So we have to do that in order to get there. So I will get off my soapbox. With the availability of AI videos these days, I mean, you could literally make any video without showing your face. You could do it, right? You can pick an avatar, an AI avatar, and you could use that AI avatar as your voice. Sure. Okay. So hopefully that helps answer that question for George and also for DF. Okay, Karina's question. Let me just make sure. Okay. Karina's question. Content repetition. How should it be done? She says, I feel like I have to be creative, but I see others using the same hook format every day, several times a day, and they seem to gain followers. How do we do content repetition the right way, and why does it work? I love Karina. I know Karina personally. She's in Creators Corner, which is our content mentorship group. And I know that Karina has struggled a little bit with content. And I'm saying this, Karina, to answer your question, because I think that you let yourself get in your head about what content you're creating. And it feels like we should be creating content that other people are creating because they're successful creating it, but that's not always the truth. So when it comes to creating content, I'm going to go through the basic foundations of content, and then we'll talk about content repetition. So basic content foundation. Your video should be clear. Okay, if you can use your back camera to record, your video will always be clearer than using your front camera. But if this is all you have, this is all you have, and that's fine. Okay, so video format. If you're going to use a filter, always use the same filter. We want to create consistency. If you have text on your screen, always use the same text and make sure that it is legible. Meaning, if we're using script, it is not an easy to read text. I would go to a non-script text. And then as far as color goes, you want to make sure it pops. So black and white is very, very popular. Okay, either black background with white text or white background with black text. That's just the basic foundations. Now, the other part of content creation. Does your audio match your video? You probably wouldn't be, this is like, if we watched the movie The Titanic, and what scene is it? I don't know, it's like a love scene. And the song Thunderstruck was played. Is that what that song is called? I think it's called Thunderstruck. It's a heavy metal song. Would we connect to that movie or that scene in that movie as well as if they played the song that actually was made for that part, like a soft, loving, romantic music? The answer is no, right? So the same thing when it goes to choosing an audio for your video on social media. You want to make sure they match. You don't want heavy metal with something loving, because again, what we're trying to do with our social media content is to evoke emotion with people, to connect and create this like line of trust with people. So the more parts we have together that can do that, the better we'll be able to make that connection and create trust. That's our goal, right? So it starts with that foundation. Okay, so that wasn't, oh, I just bit my cheek in the fourth time in the same place. That wasn't specifically for Karina, but I wanted to put that out there as for anybody else who's asking about content. Like, how do you start? What do you do? What does it need to start with? Okay, so we need to have the basic foundations of content before we can even ask about like, how do you repurpose content? Well, first it needs to be good before we repurpose it. So Karina, you will also find a post inside of Creators Corner, which if you guys need content help, I would recommend going in there. You get 7 free days, and then it's only $30 a month. It is a phenomenal community with a ton of help in there. But Karina, what you'll see in there is a post from Ria, one of our original members in there, Ria, and she talked about how she started to gain followers. She started creating content with like 40 followers when she came into Creators Corner. And what she started to do was do what I just did when I answered, I think it was George's question. You just got to create a lot of content. And you've got to obviously have a goal. Like, I'm creating content to connect with moms. I'm creating content to connect with photographers, like whoever your audience is that you want to connect with, right? And you have to just start playing around, which is why we say just post a ton of content. Can you get 100 posts under your belt and then go back and look at your analytics? Okay. And I don't mean like, oh, I've posted 100 times willy-nilly all over here. Like, I mean, have you posted 100 times with some sort of goal to connect with your audience? If you have, then you have 100 pieces of analytic data that can help you decide what's working, what's not working, what's doing a little bit better than something else. And then you can decide how to be repetitive with your content. So if you've got a post, let's say you're brand new, you started from 0 followers, you're just starting out, you've got 100 pieces of shitty content that you've posted. Congratulations, high five, that's the first step. Okay. So 100 pieces of shitty content. So you can look at that 100 pieces of content and go, okay, this got 0 views, this got single-digit views, this got single-digit views. Most of my stuff has single-digit views. Oh, except for this one. This one has double-digit views. That's the only one in all of my 100 posts that has double-digit views. So let me try to make that post again and see what happens. So you repost the same post again and you just see how it does. And you're like, huh, double-digit views again. Now let me take that post, same video, different hook, right? Different hook on screen. See how it does. You've changed one thing about that post. You do that and you're like, wow, that post did really well again. We have double-digit views again. Now let me take that video and change the audio on the video. So you do that and the post does well again. So you're starting to notice a consistent, repetitive pattern with this type of post. Is it the way the hook is being asked? Is it the video? Is there something that is like, you have to look at your video and be able to evaluate it. This is what we teach you in Creators Corner. How do you evaluate your own content? Is there a visual hook that keeps people watching for more than 6 seconds, which is why it gets high views? Is there a text hook that keeps people being like, oh my God, I need to know that? And then they go to the caption and they read, like, what is it about the piece of content that is keeping people? And then the great thing about content in Creators Corner is that you can take a piece of content and go, hey guys, I've posted 100 pieces of shitty content. This is the only piece of content that had double-digit views. I can't understand why this piece of content does well. Can you help me figure it out? And the community in there comes together and people will take a look at your content, including Sean and I, and we will help you figure out, why did this piece do well? So Karina, when it comes to content repetition, it's like, what's working well? And it's not necessarily what's working well for somebody else, but you can try that. So now let's talk about content repetition with somebody else. If you see another creator, let's just say Ria, because we were using her as an example, and she has posted the same hook with a little bit of a difference, a little bit of a difference, a little bit of a difference every time, but that post seems to do well every time she posts that hook. You could go, huh, how could I take that hook? It seems to be doing well for her. She's speaking to a similar demographic, and that's something that we want to take into consideration. Can I turn that hook into what works for me, for my demographic and my topic, my niche? Can we use that for mine? And then you try it. And then you try it. And you see how it does. And then you try it again. You have got to have a plan if you want to reuse content that other people are using. Posting it one time is not a plan. Looking at what someone else is doing that's working consistently for them, and then you putting it on your page and posting it one time is not a plan. You will not get anywhere with that. You need to be like, okay, I'm going to post that and let's see how it does. Okay. A day goes by. You go back and you look at it. How did it do? Oh, it did okay. Okay, let me rephrase this part. Let's see if it does better. Let me change the audio. Let's see if it does better. You've got to be willing to put in the reps behind figuring out why the content is working or not working for you, right? You can have, I've showed you, I know you've seen these examples of accounts that literally only have talking heads. So it's just like what you're looking at right here. It's me talking to camera. It's less than 3 minutes long. They have a hook up top. They talk about a topic. They have a call to action in the caption. And that's all they post on their account. So you could literally have an account where you post the same type of posts all the time. Different hook, different information, different hook, different information, different hook, right? But all based on your topic and or your demographic, and do well. So like Karina says, I see others using the same hook format every day, several times daily, and they seem to gain followers because they figured out a repetition that works for them. So the thing that's missing for you is the amount of repetitions behind a hook or behind a posting type or behind a topic that you have now figured out works because you've posted it multiple times. That's it. That's how you know, right? So let me know if that helps Karina clear things up. I will say this about content. We think too much about it. Just post the piece of content. Just do it. Just get it out there. Just try it. Everything we do in marketing is a trial. And the whole point of doing that is so that we have data points to come back to be like, that worked. That didn't work. Because if we're just posting into the void, I don't know, I'll just try this because I saw somebody else doing it. Oh, it didn't work for me. You didn't give it time. Right? So we have to have data points and analysis points, which is why insights is so great on social media. Okay. Okay, let's see. I think that was it for your questions, you guys. Let's see. Just making sure the comments have no questions. I saw Shelly was in here for a minute. Hey, Shelly, I'm not sure you're still around, but anyway, really, really good questions, you guys. I did make a post inside the group. If you haven't yet seen, I have revamped what was my masterclass is now a workshop. And I did that because I was tired of people listening to the masterclass and then not taking action. So the workshop is literally designed for you to go in and walk away with action. There are like parts inside the workshop where I'm like, hey, the video is going to pause for a minute. You're going to go do this thing, and then you're going to come back to step 2. And by the end of the workshop, you're going to have a working, profitable idea that you can then take and run with. That was my goal for that. So for those of you stuck in analysis paralysis, I don't know what idea to run with. I don't know what topic to lead. I don't know what demographic to be in. No more after that workshop. Straight to the point, ready to roll. You will also see, if you have looked at my course, Pop, Lock, and Profit before, that has also changed. Pricing has also changed. And so you'll hear all about that at the end of the workshop as well, if it makes sense for you to be the next aligned step. But here's what I know. Here's what I know. Let me just check this out. How many people do we have in here? We have almost 900 people inside of 𝗵𝗂ₐ𝗃. This membership for the people who are aspiring entrepreneurs who want to ditch the way life is going right now, create a new life that aligns with their goals and their desires. And that workshop was created for all of you, based on your questions, based on your problems, based on your situations, based on your needs in the conversations that I've had. Every single person who joins this community, I have a message with. So I have talked to over 900 of you about the problems you're having, the difficulties you're having, the desires you want, and the questions that you have about where to start, and literally created that workshop and Pop, Lock, and Profit for you. So if I can answer any questions about those for you, let me know. The workshop is linked in our pin post as well, and you guys can grab it there. I'll make sure to put it at the bottom of this post as well. It's about 75 minutes. It is free. Come on in and workshop yourself and see what you can do. I love you guys so much. Happy July, and I'll catch you guys inside the community.